Well, greetings. Um, Greetings. All right. The screen I'm using is an old screen that I developed. Develop is not a big deal, of course. But the main focus of it was the double eclipse that happened in 2017, and that the next total solar eclipse. That's what these are. Will be April 8th, 2024. So it seems like that's an 8-year period, right? Or a 7-year period. But if you count the year that you're on, the way you deal with musical scales, then it's 8 years. I don't know, give or take a little bit. It's not people that want to get persnickety about exact times and dates are going to be off track in their persnicketyness in terms of timing. Because the next level, it changes things all the time. So anyway, I felt like I could determine that Doe was the rider of the white horse in the Revelation records. And a lot of reasons for saying that. And that was the 7 or 8 year period of in the 90s. When he had the students go public with his teachings, him and T's teachings, where before that it was the two witnesses that came forward together with him and T. But then T left the vehicle and left the task for Doe to finish the birth of students to graduate from next level using human birth of water vehicles, born of water, and then born of flesh. Born of spirit. Spirit and mind are synonymous terms, according to T and Doe. So that. And that's indicated by Revelation 12, 1, which Doe talked about in a meeting by himself when T was in her vehicle still. And he said, bring some Bibles to the meeting. And he said, open up to Revelation 12, 1, and that the woman was speaking about T. So T wasn't at the meeting. Anyway, so that's how I know that Revelation 12, 1 is accurate part of Revelations. Because I know that from Doe that everything in the Revelations isn't necessarily accurate. And like 1,000 years he talked about wasn't in the right place. He said that John didn't get everything right, wasn't able to translate everything or understand everything that he was writing about. Now, I don't know if there were other parts of that. I don't know how many other things were off track in timing or in accuracy, but early on, Tiendo said that all the events in the book of Revelations will be fulfilled. And they talked about how Jesus was coming back with the seventh closeness. And that's in the book UFO Missionary is Extraordinary, that was built around them, which there are several interviews in there from Brad Steiger and T and Doe, and they were called Bonnie and Herf at that time, and then Bo and Peep, and then that was 1976. And then 1974, that was when they gave interviews to Hayden Hughes and a colleague of Hayden Hughes. I forgot his name. Gonzalez? No, that's the Amy Goodman co-host. I forgot his name, but I'll make a point to update that. I keep on saying that, but I hardly ever do those kind of things So I'm so engulfed with all that's happening. I have a YouTube blog entry on sawyerhg.wordpress.com that has parts of the UFO Missionaries Extraordinary book on it. So I need to update that. Anyway, greetings, Jeff. Greetings. And another opportunity to talk about Tiando, and there's a lot to kind of touch base on, as usual. Well, I didn't finish with talking about the horses of the apocalypse. I know you probably all heard that before many times, but I know Christians are confused about, in my opinion, with Revelation chapter 6, who the white horse is, and some of them are totally confused about the rest of it too. But that's because they weren't given that. They didn't have that experience with Tiando, and so it's not their fault that they're confused about it. It's their fault though when they choose to not look at it when there's some new ideas that come up. Then they're choosing not to look at what might be true, and that's the same thing with all things. I believe with the whole coronavirus thing, and if we don't look at the alternative information that's coming, then we're basically deciding to ignore it. And I can understand wanting to ignore it when our time is like so short, and like let's say we're a health worker and we're working with new coronavirus patients in a hospital, and we're overwhelmed with people every day coming in to want to be checked, we're exhausted at the end of the night. So it's like there's no time for that. Well, I think whoever's in that situation, I think I would hope would be looking for a way out of that situation, because there's going to be a lot of people that are dying. There's no question about that in my mind. But they're dying from all manner of viruses. Flu virus has the H1N1 and the H6 or H9 something, and there's a whole bunch of them. There's like hundreds. There's like 1,700 or 1,500 or 1,300 viruses that they've documented. And then there's potentially dozens of coronaviruses in that same trunk of the tree, because they all have the same common trunk of the tree. That was a doctor described that on NPR today, and but still like a head of broccoli, they said, so the top of the broccoli is each different strain, and so they're looking to make a vaccine that'll work for the trunk. And then, therefore, they wouldn't have to remake one every time there's a new strain. That's what they've had to do now, and that's why they've shortened the testing time, and they've got problems. And I don't doubt that this was the product of humans adding proteins to a virus that came from a bat. I don't have a problem with that. But the common thought for years and years and years among scientists and infectious disease scientists, even into the 2000s, and maybe even currently, is a lot of scientists that don't believe that viruses jump from animals to humans. Now, I know that's not totally true, because probably the what we call rabies, I don't know if that's a bacterial infection or a virus. I know they're different, but maybe it is. But anyway, whenever we say that something is not the case, we know that we're wrong. It's not possible. Not possible. We know that we're wrong. Doesn't mean that if I say that it's not the case that I was thinking this way, that's not something that's, there can be degrees of even that being something that I need to look at a little better, and I might come to see in a different way. But there's some Tiendo said that they know what they know, and they know what they don't know, and they know where to go to find out what they don't know. So it's a matter of, so Doe would say a lot of times in the Beyond Human tapes, he would say, I suspect this, especially about the way prophecy is going to be fulfilled, which I started to talk about that before, that like Tiendo said in UFO Missionaries Extraordinary, that all the prophecies would be fulfilled. All the events in the book of Revelation, Tiendo were talking about in the UFO Missionaries Extraordinary book. I think I did put that in my blog, which I mentioned the address of sawyerhg.wordpress.com. I just want to repeat it because I see the numbers have gone up of folks that are tuning in. Hi, Case Biz. And so that's the white horse. Is you can read about, you can listen, you can watch my videos about Revelation 11 and Revelation 12 and all those Revelation videos if you want to see the evidence that I'm putting to all that. Right now, I like to just touch the surface of things instead of going way into depth on things that I've already gone into depth with to some degree, even though I can always learn more things every time I go into depth. But so in summary, then, George W. Bush was I'm actually getting to something here. George W. Bush was the 8 years of the Red Horse, who was given a sword. He was given the power to have a sword. In other words, the next level was giving them the ability to wage war. Well, they didn't want them to wage war before that, according to Tiendo, because they were being held back from this happening. As a result of all that happened after the Patriot Act and the election that was taken over by the Supreme Court, and the document Rebuilding America's Defenses made by the Committee of the New American Century, for the New American Century, that my understanding is in that document they also talked about the space threat. But I haven't read that document through. Well, maybe I did, but I don't remember a lot of it. I just remember the parts that I kept on talking about or writing about, where they were calling for Pearl Harbor. This was 1997, this was written and signed by Rumsfeld and Cheney, but Bush wasn't a signatory on it. And Wolfowitz, I think, was the architect of the document. And he became the head of maybe the World Bank, or maybe it had something to do with one of the top positions in the UN, for representing the United States. Anyway, but I forget some of those details, but the general ideas are accurate, I believe. I can't prove them, of course, so they're conspiracy theories. Of course, they like to say that about the media, the corporate media, the mainstream media. It's everywhere. It's throughout the internet. Yahoo's part of it. Google's part of it. MSNBC is part of it. On the internet is part of it. NBC, ABC, CBS. They're all working together. And of course, they've got conflict because there is conflict about. I've actually read this in different places like the Military Times, and which I don't spend a lot of time reading about, but you get a lot of articles there that say things that you won't hear in the mainstream press. And so it's good to pay attention to everything you can. I mean, there's some people that think that everything that comes out of Fox News is terrible, but lately, what's his name has been talking about? I just forgot his name. I do that all the time, but I talked about him last live stream. That he was making some sense, So that's what matters. Whether something makes sense or points the light on something that we haven't looked at before. And I'm not talking about like false flag stuff, because that's been going on for a long, long time. A long, long time. The Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag. Even if they thought that they were being attacked, it was used. Nothing happened seriously there, and so it was used to bomb Cambodia and Laos, to escalate the Vietnam War. And so that's a false flag. It's like on the false pretenses. 9/11, in my opinion, was a false flag, even though I'm not saying those things weren't arranged by people from Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Afghanistan and wherever else they were from, that were put up to it and given, allowed to get visas. We've seen, probably everybody listening to this, I've seen probably all the 9/11 videos. I don't doubt any of that stuff that comes out, hardly. I mean, I doubt some of the stuff about, I don't know if, they were on remote control planes. It's possible. It is possible, because they could easily set up a circumstance to where they put a few people to come forward to say they had relatives in those planes. They could easily do that. Because the mainstream media is so controlled and so limited in what they talk about and the details they show and the vetting. There's some vetting that happens, but most of these newsrooms were vacated a long time ago. I mean, in the 90s, they were being defunded. I know, because I worked in the newspaper industry, writing software for a company that provided the software to, well, New York Times had their own, but the Staten Island Advance and the Boston Herald and the big papers, the Rocky Mountain News and the Chicago Sun-Times and San Francisco Chronicle, and so I was working with people, and I was finding out that their newsrooms were, well, I didn't learn it from from direct sources like that, but I did, but I learned it that people were being laid off, and that the corporations weren't happy with all the people that were on staff that had pensions, and they couldn't get rid of them because it was cronyism. They had tenure in those companies, and so they were looking for ways to get rid of what they would call dead weight. I did experience that working for J.P. Morgan when they combined with Chase Manhattan Bank, and I was working as a programmer in New Jersey, and I saw the whole programming department having next to nothing to do, yet they hired me as a contract programmer. And because they were going through a change, and they wanted to get rid of the people that had the high salaries, with the benefits, and so they were all being threatened to lose their jobs. So that's why I wasn't popular in that department. I mean, they were nice to me, but because I didn't know what was going on then. And then I watched as they shipped all their employees down to Florida. When it combined with Bank One, what I was doing was basically changing the names on reports and on screens in their mortgage-backed system. Anyway, I'm getting way off the track, and I'm forgetting where I was going now again, and I'm thinking of other things to say that talk about this, with kind of my real-world experience that I got. But I remember they were, well, I'm going to finish that thought at least, that there was a contingent of people from India that were on that floor of this big office building. It was like the third floor or fourth floor of this office building, and that J.P. Morgan Chase Manhattan Bank had. And I don't know if they had other floors of it, but it reminds me of the movie, the series The Office, in the sense of, we didn't have that kind of a comic act going on, of course, but I mean, the contingent of Indians, when they would have lunch, they would all get together and sit and have lunch with one another, and they would share their different sauces and things that they had. They would be dipping their pita breads into sauces, and they would eat right at their desks. Where everybody else would either eat in their cubicles or their little corners of the, they wouldn't be like together conversing and things. And they were hired actually to be there, to be trained to go back to India, to take the jobs back to India. So this is where, they don't want Americans to have jobs because it's cheaper. So money ends up ruling. That's why Jesus said, it's either mammon or God. That's the choices we have. And the government, the beast, represents money, power. I mean, money is power because they can pay people to do things for them that they want done. And they can control people, and they can keep people away from the resources that they want to gobble up to use to build their technologies with. And that's why the United States has been doing that since the late 1800s with Teddy Roosevelt in the Philippines, where he went in there to get the rubber, take over the rubber plantations. I mean, so this has been going on, ad infinitum, and the Spanish-American War was part of that. And that happened in Cuba with that false flag event that happened with that Navy ship, or maybe it was a cruise liner. I forgot now. The Arizona, I think it was called. I don't remember the details of that, but I'm sure you can look it up on Wikipedia. But these are all. But then to call Sandy Hook a false flag event, and then to publicize that on the leftist media is like publicizing that people say that everything's a conspiracy theory, and then using an example of that as being the flat Earth people. Instead of using the example of how 9/11 was a conspiracy, or JFK. They do that, but that's relegated now to the History Channel and the Discovery Channel and the Sci-Fi Channel and who knows what other channels, right? So people do have access to it. And you know why we have access to it right now? That same information, like on YouTube, about all the things that led up to this virus being used as a takeover of the public, as a martial law. People are saying that they're going to have martial law, but we already have martial law. That's what martial law is. We don't have to have the soldiers in the street. We just have the fear creates martial law. And then And so like Como came out and said that everybody in New York, everybody in the whole state needs to wear a mask, and that the citizens are going to be the ones to do the policing of that, because they're going to go over to people and they're going to say, how come you're not wearing a mask? Don't you know you could have caused everybody to die because you're not wearing a mask? Like the healthcare workers, you're going to cause them to die because I'm not wearing a mask in a town of 1,000 people where there's, I mean, there's cases near where I live that, north of Albany, but I'm in Vermont, that are being reported, and there's quite a few deaths, I guess, in Albany. I don't doubt any of that. Saratoga Springs, I think, has some deaths. Vermont has a couple dozen, over the last month or so. But they don't tell you, what they died from. What they say is they died from coronavirus when they many times, most times, have underlying illnesses that they actually talk about on the mainstream media occasionally. But then they'll follow a conversation about that with, saying that John Prine died of coronavirus when he had a number of cancers. And so who knows what kind of medications he was on that weakened his immune system to where it couldn't fight against a severe virus, a severe new virus. And a virus that, I started to talk about how there's a whole bunch of strains of viruses, okay? And we all have viruses in us. That's what the doctors are saying and lab technicians are saying. And I'm not listening to just one, I listen to all of them. And I get testimonies from people that aren't in the news. They don't want their faces in the news, and I understand that. But they lose their jobs. I'm not saying that the hospitals aren't crowded in some places, but there's a lot of reports of hospitals that aren't crowded because they put out the word that they don't want people going to the hospital for and so some of the people that are dying that didn't go to the hospital, according to Dr. Kaufman's theory, were staying at home, so they were dying at home. Maybe they did have coronavirus symptoms, okay, and they wanted to go to the hospital, but or maybe they didn't. Maybe they just were. Maybe they always have a runny nose and a sore throat, often, because their immune system is so depleted. I know that's the case. I know that is a fact because my vehicle's cousin was a very hefty guy, and he was a banker and a successful banker, and he had a big family, and his mother died of breast cancer, which I suspect was related to all the radioactive particles that came over the jet stream from all the nuclear tests, which was a very real threat. They were teaching people not to breastfeed because of that, not to drink milk because of that at the time, in the 50s and 60s. Anyway, but he ended up getting cancer. I think it was a lymphoma. No, not lymphoma. I don't know, but he ended up doing chemotherapy, and he ended up not getting better from that. And so they eventually sent him home, maybe in between starting up a new chemotherapy regimen. And he died at home, I think, of just some kind of common viruses that were hanging around people that we all potentially have. They say that people are carriers of asymptomatic, right? that they can be carriers, and they're making that into a big deal too. So now they're going to perform this test, and it's going to be used in New York. But thank goodness it's not going to be used necessarily everywhere, because Trump is smart in a lot of ways. I'm not saying I like him. I'm not saying he's got plenty of faults. He does, but I think he's trying to do the right thing here, and that is to stop the lockdown because of all the people that are suffering from that, and even dying potentially, even in living in fear and not seeing their loved ones, and not being able to do anything to stop from thinking about this all the time. That drives you crazy. That can really affect your health, to be engaged with this 24/7. Now I'm in the habit of it. Now it may be affecting my health too. I don't know how it might be, but I know staying on mucusless diet for the most part, and taking cayenne supplements for the vitamin C in it, and other things in it that Joe recommended to me in person. He recommended that to me as a solution to my vertigo problem. Is the best way to deal with this. Because then no matter what viruses come along, the body stands a chance of fighting it off. And meanwhile, yes, when I go to New York, I'm going to wear a mask now. I haven't been doing it. And most of the people in the grocery store in the New York town that I live near, they weren't wearing masks. There were a few, and the last time there were a few more. Now I think it's going to be everybody because the governor ordered it. But he said there wasn't going to be any fines for it. And that was smart, because if he wants to really agitate the people that know that this has been hyped, and which, there's all kinds of videos of people talking about all the different ways and all the evidence of that. There's a lot of evidence that this was made into a medical martial law. Why is what people don't understand? They think it's for profit. It is for profit, but not because they're just greedy. Then it's not because they're greedy. They're not greedy. The people that are putting this together are all wealthy, I think. And it's probably the 1%, because the G7 is in on it, I believe. I don't have proof of that, but if you look at all the countries that are having the biggest lockdowns, where doctors are speaking out, like in Germany and England, and I'm not bringing enough proof to this, but you all can look up the proof. It's all over YouTube, and of course you can't believe everything you hear. But then when you hear collaborating other news stories and things, like from the Military Times and the Corbett report. The Corbett report's, I think, a pretty decent report. He puts a lot of pieces together. And Jimmy Dore does a lot with the politics part of it. He doesn't seem to recognize, he knows how this is being used, because he doesn't deny that there's a real virus, and neither do I. But how it came about, I know he's thought about that it could have come from a government lab, because they were having military exercises. It was called military games in October of 2019, which is also when event 201 happened in New York City at Johns Hopkins. I'm not sure where in New York City that was, but that the Gates Foundation was a part of, and the World Economic Forum, and the NIH, the National Institute of Health, and who knows, everybody, where there were at least one Chinese delegate, where they said that there was going to be a coronavirus, and but they said depicted it as being in South America, not China. And so I don't doubt any of that. And it could have also been true that there's evidence of it starting in the Wuhan market, well, the fish market in Hunan province. I don't know if I got the right name on that province name, but or maybe it was another town name. Because whether it was leaked on purpose or leaked on accident or looked the other way, because they had a lot of that lab in Wuhan was actually cited with a bunch of safety violations over the years. Now, I don't know if that's kind of normal to happen, or if they like to do that to make it look like it was a leak, so they fabricate that, because a lot of planning goes into these things over years and years and years. And they can be coordinated with China. China may know some things about the 9/11 events to where they could hold Americans over a barrel in how they were part of allowing that to happen, and then making it into a bigger event than it was going to be, by downing the buildings. That's kind of what I suspect happened, that they knew that there were people that wanted to get at them, and maybe even suggested to them through their CIA contacts, even having somebody among Osama bin Laden's group, people that were working with him, to suggest using airplanes as bombs on the World Trade Center. And the first attempt might have been, by bombing the World Trade Center. I don't know, that was, they said they had that sheik, and they had him in a helicopter overlooking the World Trade Center. And he said that they would have done it if they had more money, I think, is what he said. They would have brought it down. They were trying to bring it down, but those explosions were in the base of it. So if they could have, blown up the base of it, it would have fell down. It would have, toppled. It wouldn't have come straight down. So they already had, and they put that on the air, because that was like a link to, I guess they got more money, right? Well, we know that they were funded, the Mujahideen in Afghanistan were funded through the ISI. I learned about that when I started to study this in 2001 after that happened. And it was only like $100,000 that I heard about at the time, but that doesn't mean that's the only way of funding. And that could have even been a distraction of where it came from. It's hard to know, but the fact that it happened in that way, to me, is totally believable. See, that's where it's, but even though it's, because it makes sense that they would want to cover their tracks to go through different agencies, because the more they spread it out, the more little ways that leaks can be easily discounted, because you don't know what is a leak and what's not. And Nixon was involved with leaking. We got him on tape saying, leak it. I don't know. I always wondered why he would put that on tape. He wasn't a stupid person. But and my suspicion is that the next level maybe has a hand in it. Not making him do anything, not programming him to do things, but by sending him influences or Luciferian space alien fallen angel soul that knows they can benefit by well, I'm just going to shoot in the dark here by both having a civil war and also having wars abroad, because both end up building up the security mechanisms and the armaments and the weapon systems and the military industrial complex that Eisenhower talked about, and that can be used to control the population so that all the money can be funneled towards the black budget programs and even made into budgetary programs, so that they can do everything legitimately and not have to try to hide it from people. And those programs are, according to Doe, to get off the planet. The Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls want to get off the planet because rumor has it in USA Today, USA Today information advertisement that's in the Heaven's Gate book, you can read that Doe talked about how among the space aliens, that rumor has it that they're going to be recycled, annihilated, or at least shut up underground again, which they have in their memory banks, a lot of them, that they were shut up underground, I believe, in the past. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's also rumor from the previous generations of whatever strain of mixture of human and space alien seed was used to generate hybridized human vehicles. Doe talked about them having a hybrid program. So I don't have to make anything up. I don't have to, Doe just says one thing and it opens up a whole bunch of doors to putting a lot of the puzzle pieces together. Of course, Doe didn't need to be concerned about all this, because his concern was the immediate crew that needed to be graduated into next level membership that they've been working on for who knows how many years, Earth time. There's no way to know how long they've been working with those souls. It doesn't matter how long they've been working with them, because they can all grow at different rates. Even now, we can anybody that's interested in T and Doe's material has been helped by their own desire for help to recognize the things that make sense, and the things that don't make sense. Just stick with it. If it doesn't make sense when you read that's something that T and Doe are saying, just stick with it. Now, as far as making sense out of what I say, no, you use your own judgment for that, of course, with your own study and research to see if it makes sense with what you've come up with. Because I just get added to the pot in that regard. But, I can understand giving me a little bit more weight because of all the ways that I link it to what T and Doe said. That's the only reason, because I can link it to things that T and Doe said in a big way. That the space threat is a huge threat, and they've got these programs that I downloaded that were also happening every other year in different parts of the world. And if you want to search on them, search on DART, D-A-R-T, which is the program to launch a nuclear device at a moon of a large asteroid. Now, originally, Ceres was called the largest asteroid in the asteroid belt, I believe. And but now Ceres is labeled a dwarf planet. So I don't know if they want to bomb it, but they might, because they did shoot a comet successfully back in like 2001 or 2 or 3 or so. And no, I guess it would have been maybe even 4 or 5 when that happened. I don't remember exactly, but I watched it on the live feed that was provided over the internet. You know, I stayed up late for it. I mean, late for me, it wasn't late. It was late then, but I wasn't late, late now. Anyway, but so that's what they're talking about, and they're talking about Apropos, A-P-H-O-S, which I know they've been talking about the asteroid or comet. I'm not sure what it is at this point, but they're saying that it's gonna scheduled to come within the orbits of satellites, within the synchronicity orbits of synchronicious. I don't know how to say that word. Orbits of satellites that humans have all over around the planet in 2029. Now, I don't know if that's, like, I'm not making a doomsday prediction, but because I'm not a doomsdayer, but I certainly believe that when Jesus said, "Go to the mountains," when you see the abomination that makes for waste, for desolation, waste. In other words, you see the weeds showing their faces. That's what I believe that means. And Doe talked about how the people that are the weeds in session 4 of Beyond Human series, and also in USA Today information ad, being the ones that are supporting the space alien agenda to get off the planet, and also to, try to have cities underground in different places to try to survive. That talks about in Revelation 6 as well. As when there's a certain amount of earthquakes that happen, that are the biggest ever since the beginning of the civilization. They say world in the records, but world means the human kingdom world during each civilization. But so definitely read or watch session 4 if you want to see what Doe talked about in terms of how the finish might happen. And he said that there could be thousands of spacecrafts coming in shifts. And he didn't say, he said there would be one shift that would be the next level, and one shift that would be the space aliens. And he didn't say which would come first. I don't believe in that statement in Beyond Human Session 4. And if I say anything inaccurate when you read those or watch those videos, come back and tell me about it. And in case somebody's going to do that right now, I'm going to go to the chat room. Okay, I see A Space AA has retracted three things. Maybe I covered it or had second thoughts. Okay, I'm fine with whatever. I'd like to retract some things I say once in a while. Well, I do. I edit things all the time, but I can't do that. I do it here too. I retract things I say. Anyway, DJ Taconic, how you doing? Good to see your smiling face, whether you're smiling or not. And it's a pleasure to have your presence in the chat room and in the conversation to whatever degree. I enjoy it. I'd like to be able to do this, with a whole bunch of people. Maybe I should do it. I could start doing on Twitch, to where a bunch of people can just basically, we can all be on the phone together, and I could do it at the same time as. That's what I'd like to do. At the same time as doing these live streams, so that because people like to see people, even have more than one person on at the same time, or take turns with bringing in other people's Facebook feeds or whatever. Because I can do that. I can capture, But so AAA says, are you saying that Atlas is a spacecraft? No, I'm not saying that Atlas is a spacecraft. I'm not saying what Atlas is or isn't. But is there evidence that it could be a spacecraft, or it could be actually an armada of spacecrafts? Like some people would. I heard this from another friend of mine who said that he heard on some media that he was listening to that some people thought that it was like a little mini solar system, a Nephilium, not a Nephilium, a Nibiru, like a little solar system. And what if the next level had a bunch of spacecrafts and they put them in a configuration to where they were going around one another? Then it would look like that. When the picture of it breaking up kind of indicates, I should really put that picture up here. Where do I have that picture now? Yeah, I should put that up here. But it was a picture like this one here. In the bottom left corner, you got Pan-STARRS comet in two different, taken from an observatory on the Earth. You can see that line going through it is supposedly a airliner or a jet or something. And so the comet is taken with infrared, and that was 2013 that happened. And that has a little dot in the front of it. You can see it with you can see it better with the picture that has the multiple colors in it. There's a little dot at about the like if I was looking at that as a clock, be about the 5 o'clock. 4:30 or 5 o'clock position, and or 4 o'clock position, but anyway, so now what's the evidence of that, right? From what Doe said, well, he said there could be thousands of spacecraft could come in shifts. Well, let's say one of them is 1,000 spacecrafts. Okay? I don't know if the space aliens have thousands of spacecrafts. Maybe they do. I don't know what's possible in that vein, but it doesn't matter. So it's certainly possible, and Jesus is the one, and Tiendo said we could trust what Jesus said in the four Gospels, because the next level worked very hard, a crew in the next level worked very hard to keep that information accurate for our purposes, for our needs, his needs as well. I mean, but he didn't need, he and T didn't need Jesus's teachings to teach the classroom. Well, I'm not going to say they didn't need them at all. They were helpful to them. I think they could have, just like Jesus used the Moses teachings, but Tiendo said that the Moses teachings were tampered with. So you couldn't trust that they're 100% accurate. With the Jesus teachings, even though they've been tampered with, weren't tampered with in such a way that rendered what he said, the red letters, as inaccurate. The way they were tampered with was by having all kinds of interpretations and translations, even that weren't as accurate as other translations. Like, let's say the word abode. Okay, there's several Greek words that are used, that the word English word abode is used for. And one of the ways that abode is used is as a residence. You know, where you abode is where you live. And it says that, Jesus said that in John 14:23, I think is the verse. The few verses that I actually remember the exact verses, talks about how talking about his Father and him, saying that we will come to you and make our abode with you, and he used the word our and we in there, and I think those words actually, I think those words were added, the pronouns were added because of the tense of the Greek, or the mode, I forgot what you call it in the Greek, that kind of defines things in tense. Because I don't know if they had words for the tenses. I'm confused about that between the Hebrews and the Greeks, because I didn't study them a lot, that I didn't have to go into the tenses that often, but I did go into the tenses sometimes to try to get, more confirmation. But I don't recall all the details of that, those investigations. But let's see. So Jesus said that one of the signs would be, and by the way, in the Greek, sign and marker are the same word in the Greek. So that's another choice of which word to use. And Doe used the word marker on the Heaven's Gate website, saying that the Hale-Bopp comet was a marker they were waiting for from the very beginning, that he and T were waiting for. It was the marker of their exit. And that's what he was talking about in 1975, their exit on a spacecraft. That doesn't mean that the comet itself is a spacecraft. No, it doesn't mean that. In fact, what Doe said was that it didn't matter, it was irrelevant whether there was a spacecraft in the tail of Comet Hale-Bopp, because he knew that his older member, T, would have the spacecraft nearby when it was time for them to leave. It could have been just a shuttlecraft that was nearby. It could have been a huge shuttlecraft. Who knows what size it would be. But it didn't matter how, it could have actually been on top of the mansion. Literally, because T and Doe talked about, Doe talked about, let me think a second. No, T and Doe talked about how the next level can have a spacecraft that's invisible to our eyes, but it can be physical and can't be detected by humans in a way that they could know what it was they were detecting. I'm going to add that into it because Tiendo didn't like that word can't a lot of times. And but detecting it as like a frequency isn't really detecting it, and and they don't necessarily know what's causing a certain frequency to be emitted somewhere. Like Doe said that spirits were echoes. That's a frequency. An echo is a frequency that's bouncing off of a more solid object than it. And I think that more solid object is the electromagnetic field of the Earth, and the human vehicles that they attach themselves to, that they, I guess, try to go through. And we saw that movie Ghost when I was in the classroom, and Tiendo enjoyed. I think it was T was there. I don't remember for sure. But enjoyed the depiction of how they did talk about how spirits don't know what they can do, what they can't do. They said that souls that are developed souls, they can do more in the spirit world than the unseen world. Even though their plasma consistency, they can still, I guess, I don't know how fast they can travel, but they can go places in the atmosphere that human discarnates influences can't go to. And so that was the evidence of that movie in Ghost, where the newly departed spirits from the vehicles were not knowing how to go through somebody or go through the door of the subway car, through the wall of it. I think there was another couple examples of that. But they were shown by other spirits how to do that, and then they tried it and they saw that they could do it. Now, Tiendo did teach, I believe, I remember, which some of this you're only going to find in the audio tapes, that the Luciferians do use discarnates. Maybe that's how they create holograms. Maybe if you put enough of them together, they end up building into something. I don't know. Or maybe they do holograms with other technologies they have. Maybe they had that technology on the spacecrafts that they got from the next level as primitive spacecrafts, but that they originally got from the next level. They could still be fully operational spacecrafts, I imagine. If the next level made it, Tiendo talked about how they make vehicles, and vehicles can actually be spacecrafts. Like instead of having a humanoid body and that's grown for a member of the next level, you have a spacecraft body. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but so that person that thought they saw a jellyfish in the sky could actually be some kind of a next level vehicle that they made in order to show humans. I used to think about, early on, after I left the classroom, I had a lot of thoughts about things, and I used to wonder if I started to compare the atmosphere of the Earth as being like water. Like, it's got a certain amount of density to it, frequency density and particle frequency and particle density with the gases that exist, right? And the particles that are trapped by those gases. And like the carbon that's trapped by, all the pollution. that only amounts to 0.04% of the atmosphere. 0.04% of the atmosphere is CO2. So that Al Gore's theory that's forming a blanket that's holding the heat in, or even blocking the sun's heat. No, it's not blocking the sun's heat. They're saying holding the heat from the sun in is like a blanket that's like chicken wire, at best. I don't know if that's the best analogy for it, but so how is that a blanket? If you took that kind of chicken wire made out of cloth and you put it over your body at night when it was cold, do you think you would stay warm? No, you wouldn't stay very warm. So that's but see, that kind of common sense thinking is hard for a lot of people to imagine. And it seems like it's common sense, but the existence of deity seems like common sense. But the only reason that it's common sense is because individuals were helped to have that common sense by the next level. And the next level holds back the negative forces. And that's why we still have access, in my opinion, to all the smatterings of true information on the internet, on the radio, and maybe some TV channels. So it's like, I know they're circulating a petition to try to bring about a constitutional Congress. And my understanding is that it requires like 37 or 8 states. I guess a majority of the state, 2/3 maybe, is that what 2/3 are? Yeah, it's pretty close to that, right? So anyway, but my brain does a number thing problems sometimes, but it's like 3 or 4 states short, according to my understanding now. But what they're putting forward as an amendment to me is like worthless. They want to make it so that the people in Congress and the Senate and the higher ups in the government are all just getting a salary for the time period in which they work. In the Senate, and then they get no pension, and they have the same health program as everybody else, and and so it's like, even if you did that, what difference would it make? All those people are filthy rich. They can buy their health coverage for them and their families. A lot of them are in bed with the biggest corporations. A lot of them come from the corporations, and they go into politics, or they become lobbyists, and then they recognize that they're good at trying to convince people of things. So the art of the deal, like Trump. Tiendo did say that when Ross Perot was running for office of the presidency, that he said, I remember hearing her say that maybe it would be good to have a business person running the country, because maybe they would do a better job of running the country. This was in the 80s, because he was still in her vehicle. I remember that. And they were considering having us vote, but decided not to because they didn't want to jeopardize uh, the location and the people that they knew were in the classroom that investigators were looking for, which we know we got verification that was happening, even though an ex-classmate poo-pooed it, that there was a reason to fear being found. I mean, fear, not really fear, but not wanting to be found because they don't want to be interfered with. I guess fear is part of that, right? Interfered with. I haven't thought about it like that word. I don't know if it has a relationship. But some fear is good fear. If it keeps you out of hot water with the government, then it's a good fear. Or with the police or with anybody that could take you to the courts and throw you into jail, where you would have to pay dearly for what you didn't agree with. You didn't, like Jesus said, find agreement with your adversaries while you're in the way with them. Otherwise, you'll go to the courts, the judge, and into jail if you don't find agreement with them. And that means like settle your debts. And I have experience with that. I was arrested and taken to jail. I didn't actually spend any time behind bars because I used a credit card to bail myself out. But I was arrested because I had a light went out on my headlight, and I was refusing to pay some fines for some speeding tickets that I got because I didn't think they were justified. And so I got my license suspended because I tried to go to court, but they wouldn't give me any voice, and they declined me to have a jury trial, even though I had the right to have one. They made it so that I could only have it on a certain day, and I couldn't do it because of my employment. They wouldn't give me another day. The justice system, it's interesting that I have experience with a lot of these things that I knew was corrupt, but I didn't have personal experience with it until I had these experiences. And so that ended up biting me in the butt because I was with my daughter and her friend when I was pulled over and taken to jail, and I don't know what happened to my car. I guess my ex came and picked it up, and her boyfriend, or maybe just him, her partner. But or maybe I think I was allowed to drive it to the police. Yeah, that's what happened. They followed me to the police department. And but anyway, that's neither here nor there. I guess I went down a couple threads there. Okay, I'll read the chat room. Booster says that Doe said in a video that next level beings are not space aliens because they need to stay near mammalian planets. Because they need to stay near mammalian planets to feed off of. I do not understand. Okay, well, I'd actually like to see the actual spot in that, if you can find it for me sometime. But if you can't do that easily, I'll respond to what I think that means. Because I don't actually remember those words in that order. Which actually, I hope that they are in that order, because that's opening the door to me understanding more about ways that Doe is looking at the reason why the space aliens are here. I know they're in jail, but I didn't know that. I know they need to stay near mammalian plants, not planets, right? Plants, I think is what you meant to say there. Wow, I'm getting all these. I love that you love that this vehicle and this mind have had this experience, this tremendously unique and unusual experience with the two greatest people that lived in the history of this civilization. Because they were, way beyond this civilization as well. I'm not the one that puts a limit on that, but that's So I love you all too in that same vein, and because I'm also thankful to have you all to express that to me. I don't need to hear that, of course, but I appreciate it because of how you are appreciating the degree of goodness that I was given and that I made into my own mind. That doesn't make me into. I have to follow that for the people that think that builds my ego. It doesn't build my ego, because when I leave here, I don't go around and gloat about it. I've seen that influence a time or two, but it's it doesn't present me with a problem to tell that influence to get the hell away from me. Like Doe says, many times, I can hear Lucifer, Satan in my head, trying to attack me because of what I'm saying. It says that in session 4 of the Beyond Human series. And so that's what that is. If we do have thoughts like that build ourselves up into something special, the only reason we can be something special is if we are connected to someone who is really special. I mean, really, truly 100% special, and that's a member of the next level. Because even the greatest human is lesser than even the least member of the next level. Not that the next level has competition, they don't. But there are individuals that are older and wiser and have more experience in all ways than other individuals. That's the way it works. And we're right now the individuals that are coming up, potentially. And we're coming up to the degree that we want to come up. And the degree of wanting to come up is based on how much we put ourselves in Tiando's hands. That's what it really comes down to right now. How much we're willing to put ourselves in Tiando's hands and say, okay, I want to grow as fast as possible. Lead me. Help me do your work. Help me recognize the truth in the things that you're teaching. And to do that, read what they say and Tiando say, and listen to their audios, and the way that I feel like I have a chance to continue to serve is by doing the same thing and tying it into what I'm observing in the world. I'm not saying that people need to have my input in order to. I don't think they need it at all. It could be somebody in China that hears this, because they watched it on CNN years ago, and then they saw it come up again, and so they went to the Heaven's Gate website and they found a way to translate it into. They knew English enough to where they could read it, and they believed that they were the return that the Christians were talking about, and so they could have nothing to do with what little old me is saying, and be following their path 100% in terms of Tiando's judgment. And anyway, I have to always go through that to qualify, because it's true. It's not. I'm not trying to be humble. I don't have to try to be humble. I know that that what I say doesn't have the weight unless it contains Tiando's information. And then it does have the weight of Tiando in it. Now, I can get interpretations wrong, of course, but that's why I try to bring up different examples of things that they said, which I should probably get back to, talking about the Armada or the thousands of spacecrafts coming and how that's depicted in the book of Revelations and what Jesus taught. I definitely like to spend a little time on that every time. But you can look for yourself on it, and just, because I'm not going to make it into a Bible discussion. I'll just touch the high points, and so I can cover more ground, because there's so much to talk about. But like in Revelation 14, it talks about a cloud of light, a white cloud. A white cloud comes. That's right after they get finished talking about how this information is going to be talked about in the midheaven. The midheaven is the middle heaven, the middle part of what the Jews talked about in their Talmud tradition as the three heavens, and purgatory being the middle one. So it's a halfway point. So that's like a storage area with individuals that have had some relationship with the next level, and but haven't become members of the next level of the highest heaven relative to deep space. Tiando used to talk about it as deep space, where the stars are, because the space aliens can traverse the area around the Earth. Okay, now the near space, the space aliens can go to. So let me get back to that question from Booser. Right, they need the eggs and sperm from humans, because they're mammals. Tiando used to call them human equivalents, not humans, human equivalents, because humans are the ones that originated on the Earth, where the space aliens are individuals that originated on different planets with their ancestry, not the immediate ones, not the ones that have vehicles now, but the souls. Yeah, the souls came from different planets, because Doe talked about that. He talked about how before they came, that there were two things that they talked about, and this was when the first one was when T was still in her vehicle, talking about T remembered the briefing, where there were some individuals in a spacecraft that had physical vehicles, and then there were some individuals on the spacecraft that did not have dense physical vehicles. So more dense physical vehicles, and some that didn't have dense physical vehicles. But they were around the outside, and I don't know how many of those there were. Maybe there were 144,000. It might have been a huge spacecraft. So anyway, but then they also talked about, those said that there was a time when the next level required people on different planets, souls on other planets, that had grown to the same kind of degree that the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls grew to, required them to come to the Earth to have the choice of going through the astronaut training program or remaining on Earth. Next level always gives choices. And so the ones that, I'm talking about the ones that had physical vehicles that had been grown had been grown by the next level for them to wear, and were doing kind of elementary tasks for the next level. I think that's potentially who we're talking about. But, whether they were in some form in development to that degree. Which, some of the 144,000 could have come from that too. Or whatever that number is. That number just might mean a lot, in the thousands. Well, Tiendo said that there were only thousands of members of the next level. They didn't say how many thousands. And they didn't say what they didn't know as to be a fact. So let's say, and so I started to put things together with most of what I'm talking about, when the next level helped wake me up again. Wake me up a little more, not again, because it's not you don't arrive at being woken up. It's a continuous process of waking up, because it also has to do with incorporating the behaviors and ways of the next level members, and looking for ways to not be interfered with. So separating from the human kingdom is part of that. So that, and also separating from the teachings of the human kingdom that would have us have our bodies in a diseased condition. We want to get our bodies, we want them to last as long as possible. And so that we can do the work that still needs to be done, standing up for Tiendo. When that's going to be actually, we're going to give our lives to that. We have to arrive at that. I'm not saying when we have to arrive at that, but that's part of the program, to give your life to that. And that's what Jesus taught. That's what Moses taught. Give your all your heart, all your mind, all your emotions. That'd be hard, I guess. All your mind, which would be your thoughts, and all your soul, which would be letting the teachings from the next level base our judgment on anything, Like Doe said, that if you had 51% of the true mind in you, the next level mind in you, then you would use that to make a basis for all your decisions. You wouldn't be, so that's where I'm coming from on that. And so now, does that mean like every thought, like you got to spend your time in meditation thinking OT and no OT? No, that would be, that's not the way it works. No, you still have to make sticks, or Tindo called money with sticks. You know, because you need to buy food for yourself or barter for food for yourself, if that's what it, comes to. So work is important. Not to depend on the government, but yes, use whatever you can get from the government, especially when you've been paying your taxes all these years and all the fees and everything for everything. Sales tax is part of that. So we're all paying taxes. I don't think you can live in this society without paying taxes and fees galore. And so there's nothing wrong with getting that back. Not by being crooked, not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes, but if you need to, well, I'm not going to say, I know that the human laws aren't necessarily the next level's laws. For instance, some Christians think that if you even break the speed limit, you're breaking the law of God by doing that, because those people were led to bring about that speed limit by their belief in God, or somehow I don't know how that actually people put things like that together. That's a way of really distorting things, right? So that's an extreme way of thinking. And at one point in the classroom, I don't know how much Doe is entertaining this, but we weren't finding jobs, and we were running out of money, and we were living in California, and we're living in trailers, in campgrounds like in Anaheim, RV parks, things like that. And Doe came to us and he had a meeting with us, and he said he doesn't know what to do. He's like, not sure why this is happening. It was a low point for him in terms of his being in a quandary. And so I think he was asking us for help with ideas on what to do for income, because the Autocraft task force weren't finding jobs, and I was one of those. And it went on for 2 weeks. I wasn't finding a job, and I had a pretty good skill list and everything. So and Silicon Valley was right. Well, not actually. That's more in the San Francisco area, but LA has its own form of Silicon Valley, big time. But Orange County, especially. So I think one student asked him, didn't want to suggest something, but was asked for that input. And I think it was Jim Odie that suggested to Doe that maybe he could try to collect SSI, Social Security Insurance, right? Is that what it is? Which people get for disabilities and also mental disabilities. And I don't know if Doe agreed to do it or not, but Jim Odie was going to go with Star Odie to that office for an interview, and to where Star Odie was going to be his benefactor, like his guardian. And Star Odie was, her vehicle at the time was probably close to 60 already, and looked like, a small She was short and had grayish hair and looked like somebody's grandmother. And from her vehicle's appearance, and Jim Odie was in a vehicle that I believe was a Hispanic vehicle, and he was going to act like he was not capable of holding down a job or taking care of his own finances and living, because he had mental problems. Now, I don't know what he actually said. I think they did go to the interview. I don't know if he ever got accepted for it, but because I think we left California soon after that and went back to Arizona, maybe. That was the second or third time we were living in California. Anyway, but so what I'm saying is that, in the speed limit, we were given instructions not to go more than 3 miles above the speed limit. 2 or 3, I think, is the way they said it. The reason why, not because we believed that was the safest speed to go, because they didn't want anybody to be, caught speeding to where and that could make its way back to an investigator that could find them and pull them out of the classroom. Like some investigators, some parents or loved ones of some of the members of the classroom hired investigators to do. My mother wanted to hire an investigator to do, and my dad felt like, my vehicle's dad felt like I was doing what I wanted to do. And that was apparently a big division between my vehicle's mother and my vehicle's dad, according to my vehicle's brother. Anyway, so anyway, okay, let me, I go way off the track there again, but I think sometimes I'll cross the T's and dot the I's when I keep on going. I want to get back to see if there's any more to talk about regarding Booster's recollection of what Doe said, and to try to help him get it in his head a little bit better. But I know it's a strain to get this in our heads. We can feel like we hear the words. We can feel like, some of it kind of makes sense, but then it can also sound like I don't know. I just this is not. There's something about it that I still haven't seen, and that's because it's a process. It's a process, and it doesn't mean you're behind or ahead of anybody else. I've been having that process regarding this coronavirus big time, and trying to understand what's going on. And with T and Doe's information, the first time that I heard about, well, when Doe first brought in the book UFO Crash at Aztec, New Mexico, where there was an alleged crash with some say 18 bodies found, 3 foot something tall, 3.5 foot tall bodies. Doe required us to read certain parts of the appendix. It was a big, thick book, like my book, in a sense, of the evidence that led up to and was surrounding everything that took place before and after that Aztec crash. Anyway, and so in the appendix was the autopsy reports. And that's what we were required to read. That Leonard Stringfield brought to that book that he got from another doctor, and he was working for MUFON. Leonard Stringfield, I think was his name. Anyway, so I remember at some point, I don't remember when exactly, when I was reading that, but I read other parts of the book and the appendix too, because there were a few places in the appendix though not made us. There was no mechanism to make sure that everybody read it. You didn't have to sign it out and say how many pages you read. You didn't have to have your partner sign off to say how many pages you read, or you have to give a report of those pages. There was no mechanism for any of that in the classroom. There was a little tiny bit of that sometimes that would last for a week or two before they would discontinue it, just to get us to help. Well, for whatever lessons we would get at even doing that. Because even if you were required to do that, that would be a test. Would you do it? Or would you think, and this is too controlling? This is really kind of brainwashing, right? To force me to read this and then report back. But they didn't do that. So I wish I wouldn't have even said it in that way, because someone could just take that little part, and take it out of context and then claim that T and Doe were forcing somebody to do something when they weren't. They weren't ever forcing anybody to do anything. But the lower forces, they can use humans to do all kinds of. Because the other thing that the lower forces, the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls want to do is they want to keep people away from recognizing the reality of the next level, and how the T and Doe were the current representatives, and that Jesus was also a representative, and Elijah and Moses and Enoch and Adam were all representatives from the next level that T said were all done by Doe, by the soul, the older member soul that is in the vehicle that we ended up calling Doe. Doe said he doesn't know what his name was in the next level, but he knew that he had a name. He wasn't given to know that while he was in this vehicle. He said that in the Beyond Human series. And it said in Revelation 3:12 that they would have new names, and that he would tell us the name of his God. God in that context meant deity, his older member, because a God is an older member to a human student. Even the least in the next level is a God to a human, according to Jesus. He was comparing with John the Baptist as being the greatest human. Probably because John the Baptist was a student I think. I have no doubt about that. I wondered if it was the same student that did the Aaron task. Because in both cases, uh, Jehovah communicated, or the Father communicated with that individual even at birth. And Aaron was a brother, right, of Moses. So it's from the same family. And John the Baptist was related as a cousin, I believe, to Elizabeth. Is that right? Was his vehicle's mother, and she had vision of angel telling her how to name him or something like that. Or maybe not how to name him. That was what Mary was given, right? But Jesus' vehicle was prepared by the next level for that task. That's why it was referred to as a virgin birth. I think that Tiendo thought that that Jesus didn't have same kind of upbringing as a lot of other students. Maybe he never did have sex. I don't know. Because they didn't have to overcome it totally at that point. But they were given the formula that it would need to be overcome. That's why he said, if you're married and you even lust on somebody else, then you're committing adultery. And that divorce wasn't meant to be from the beginning. You're meant to have one mate. And that's also the fallen condition. Fallen isn't, they knew that there was going to be a potential for people to fall because they wanted individuals to build the strength against the lower forces. But it didn't mean that they had to fall. There was no like destiny that Adam had to break instructions by not wanting to be alone, according to Doe, and as it says in Scripture, in the not wanting to. Well, there is some indication of not wanting to be alone in there, but and not being satisfied with being alone, and also not following the instructions. So what the Moses classroom was all about, well, it was about a number of things, but a big part of it was, can you follow instructions? Can you cut your beard a certain way? Or are you going to do it your own way? And that's in the 17 steps that Tiendo brought to us in the 70s and said, this is your first list of ways of thinking that you need to adopt. And the first one was, can you follow instructions? Or do you change them according to your own computer? Computer meaning your mind, which the brain is what the mind is founded on, the spirit that's generated by the experiences, but the mind is also combined with the genetic mind and the environmental mind, the mind that we accumulate as we're growing, and the mind that the information, the programming, the behaviors and ways, all that's the mind. The experiences and our interpretation of them, our belief in them, our beliefs is all part of the mind of the human vehicle. And there's a new mind generated by each human vehicle. It's not a soul, it's not a mind that's coming back from a previous experience, although that mind, those dead minds do follow with their strains, according to Tiendo. So a lot of times they do follow along with their families, unless they broke away from their families and formed the new bonds with people like that had common thinking, and then they're forming a new little branch on that vine, on that tree. And so they would hang around with them most of the time. And that's probably happened to our vehicles before. That's why to a lot of the vehicles that are attracted to Tiendo's information probably have broken ties with people in their lives. They may still have relationships with them, that's fine. They may even still live with them, that's fine. But those individuals may not pose a threat to them, and they're going forward with being of service to Tiendo. But that in times in their life, they might have been faced with having to leave them behind to the care of other people, and trust in the next level that they'll be taken care of by even making arrangements for that to happen. That's part of the way that we trust for it to happen. We look for the people that will help those individuals if we do feel like we need to leave our circumstance. Because that is part, I mean, when the older member is walking around, then we have to leave our circumstance to follow with them. Because otherwise, they don't want to force other people in our families and things to go through this very difficult astronaut training program of changing everything about us and not thinking about the past anymore. No more birthday parties, no more, caring about the weddings. They talked about it in those terms, that if we let people be in touch with the humans in their lives, pretty soon they'd be saying, can't you come to Jody's birthday? No, Jody's marriage. It would mean so much to us if you came to Jody's marriage. They didn't use that word Jody, but maybe the word Susie. Maybe they use. Sometimes I think they use the word Susie in the Beyond Human tapes, maybe. But same idea. It doesn't matter. We can make a big deal out of some of those kind of words that are used, and you may find some connections. But those aren't the important things. That's like amusement. Like amusement to Doe was talking about the Book of Revelations, because the students that he was with didn't need that to hear much about that. A lot of them probably didn't even study it, even though he said in 1994 that they need to become familiar with the things that Christians would be talking about and finding objection with us, so that we could talk to Christians during those meetings. And after those meetings were held and we were mingling with people that had questions. They don't want us. He said in the Inverness tape, or maybe it was the Portland tape or the Denver tape. I don't remember which ones it was exactly. Where he said, yes, get familiar with those materials. He was talking to Rick Cody at the time, but the whole group at the time. Rick Cody had brought the subject up of whether, he should be more bold about advertising the meetings. Like holding up a poster in front of people to see. I think that's the example he used, but I might got that wrong. That's how I remember it. Anyway. If someone actually listens to that again, which I played all those tapes on these live streams. So you would look through the title would say Portland on it, or Denver, or Inverness, which was a city in California, I believe. Which I think it's crucial for everybody to listen to those tapes, the 94 tape especially, and of course all the 96 tapes that Doe made, and I don't think it's necessarily crucial to listen to every audio tape, but I don't think it wouldn't hurt anybody to listen to all the audio tapes. You might find one or two that you want to listen to over and over again, and not necessarily in a row, but it can be. But coming back to them. Sometimes I know one individual. I think Case Biz maybe told me that she likes to watch that Beyond Human session 5 repeatedly. You feel drawn to that. Well, you do what you're drawn to. But certainly all the Beyond Human tapes, to me, are crucial to also listen to. Just see Doe talking, is a plus. How he acts and how he, what things are humorous to him and what things are silly to him and what things are very important and what ways he's, and what kind of compassion he has and understanding and tolerance and patience. It's like flexibility. When we're not flexible, that was one of the first things that we were given as a keyword to focus on as a characteristic of a member of the next level. Flexibility. We were living outdoors when that word was given to us, to be flexible. Now, that doesn't mean be flexible in our repeating of what Doe said. Try to be exact whenever you can. Write things down. Take notes. That's what I do. But a lot of times when I do these live streams, I don't refer to the notes. I just go with the flow. But I had things I wanted to go over and talk about. Let me think if there's anything else. I mean, the subject that Booster brought up is a huge subject. Are you saying that Atlas is a spacecraft? Is part of that. Oh, I skipped that. You said, and threat aliens are going to visit us soon. No, the aliens are here. They've been here for even before the civilization. Maybe that's why you see the Nasdaq lines, and they might have had a civilization that had runways for space shuttles and who knows what. Doe said that he didn't know. He thought that there was technology developed in the previous civilizations, but he didn't know if they had gotten to go to different planets or not, like they do now. He didn't know what would have happened to the space junk if they, during whatever recycling took place. He wasn't saying that was the case. But he did feel that there were multiple, even many civilizations before the current one on Earth. So and it was Revelation 19 that talks about coming back with well, I read it last time. They would be wearing new vehicles, and they would be coming back in spacecrafts, like compared to being a white horse. That's different than the white horse in, even though both I think are Lucas. Let me check that quick. Okay, I'm going to switch my thing here so you see it. Oh, yeah, maybe I'll not do that. I'll do this other one here. Yeah, I'm still ticking away here. Okay, let's go over to. Let me see. I gotta change over here. Okay. Revelation 19. I can't not stop here because this is depicting also some of the overview. Where it says Revelation 19:4, and the 4 and 20 elders and 4 beasts. But that really word shouldn't be beasts, it should be living beings. Because if you look at the meaning of it, it says Zeo, a live thing, and if you look at another translation, it says living being. Now it's saying it's an animal beast because they're in human vehicles at the time. So they are, to that degree, mammalian. But they're not living by mammalian characteristics anymore, except for eating, which we don't have to overcome eating. We have to overcome likes and dislikes, but not in the current classroom, because that classroom passed. Because we have to go by the likes and the likes of Tiendo. That's how we follow their mind, by doing whatever they give us to do. And if we don't like it, then learn to at least tolerate it, like I did with okra. I can't say I ever liked it, but I got to a point to where I wasn't gagging when I would eat it. So I guess I choked it down. I mean, I didn't choke it down, but I got, I didn't mind doing it, but it was a task every time. Anyway, so that's just, putting some reality to the ideas. But because they use beast also in the context of therion, which means a poisonous animal. That's the difference between a weed and a flower. Okay? Anyway, so it's important to have that distinction. So that's something that's wrong with the book of Revelations. There's two different words, the same word used for two totally different ways of looking at living beings, or really living beings. See, because humans aren't really living yet. We're only living when we don't die anymore. It's perpetual living. That is life in the next level's mind. And you can see how they would think that. Just the same way we think of animals. We think that the vehicles are living vehicles. Sure, they have the biology and everything goes along with them, but we know that they're lesser than humans are in their choices, and in a number of ways related to those choices and what they can do. They can't help people that much, not compared to the way that humans can help other humans, and even humans can help animals. They can't really help other animals all that much. They do that. They have it in there. It's in their genes, in there, to help one another, especially family members. Protect the young, protect the spouse, hunt for the spouse. Deal with danger, protect from the elements, like the penguins. They take turns being on the outside edge of the herd of penguins. My understanding, and they were suggesting that was because they were living as a community, and they have other things that they do to where they are considerate of one another. That's where humans get it from, I think. So it becomes a natural thing. But then humans then end up becoming so self-centered that, they can be perfectly happy thinking of other humans as collateral damage. Somebody I know, has been kind of freaking out with this. A lot of people have, of course, maybe everybody. And with the whole lockdown and the virus, and the fear of that, and the people walking around with masks and social distancing. I'm not saying there's not a value to social distancing, especially if you're living in the cities where, more people are having problems. Anyway, but she said that she thought Bill Gates was a good guy, but she says, I guess I'm wrong. Yeah, we're going to be wrong about things. And we got to be wanting. We want to know the things that we're wrong about. And the way that we can find out what we're wrong about is by asking the next level for the truth. Asking Tian-Do to help me see the truth in this circumstance or this subject, or, is this really true? Is it that this is happening in this way? They're actually, adding proteins to animal viruses so that they can jump to the humans and infect the humans. Is that really true? And then you might see some reports on it. That's what I've been doing. I heard those first reports that came out that was suggesting that. I didn't necessarily believe it, but then I saw subsequent reports that gave more data about that. Now, that might have been the same source, but I can't deny that it's more possible the more you see reasons for it. But also going with my own feeler, Tian-Do calls our sensory sense of anything our feeler. Like, in other words, when they said to go out and spread the truth in 1975, we had no money. They said, ask the next level where to go, and ask the next level how to get help with your needs, and go to the churches for help with your needs, because they say that they want to help everybody. They want to help the poor with food and clothing and lodging. That's what Jesus taught, his disciples to go out and that the workman was worthy of their meat. So even now, if somebody feels led to, hit the road and spread the truth, on the road, going town to town, and looking for, people to help them, with their needs, and I don't think it would be wrong to say that you're working for your Heavenly Father, because you need to interface with the people. It's not dishonest to do that, because Do talked about it as his father, and it'd be on human tapes all over the place. He talked about his Heavenly Father. So you're working for your Heavenly Father, and as Do and T, they're both your Heavenly Fathers, because one's a grandfather. T is the grandfather to Do. No, T is the father to Do, just like the father was to Jesus, just like Jehovah was to Moses, and Jehovah was to Elijah. And Elohim is to, just using the time frame, the names associated with the descriptors and names. Jehovah was a name, but Elohim was a position, a magistrate, a judge. And now more than one, too, is plural. Jehovah, I think, was a singular term, but I'm not sure of that. Right, so the space aliens are feeding off of the mammalians by needing eggs and sperm and other substances from animals and humans from humans, preferably because they're trying to grow new vehicles that they can make into crew members that will have their same ways of thinking. Just like having a child and growing up in a Mormon community, and those children grow up thinking that's the norm. So space aliens are doing the same thing. And that's how they keep living, through those new vehicles, taking them over. I mean, they don't have to actually be inside of them, steering each one of them. They're in a they have a vehicle that's a human hybrid vehicle, and but I don't think they're attached to that vehicle anymore. So they can leave it, and the vehicle doesn't die. Where if the next level attaches a soul, well, even if the soul leaves it, the vehicle doesn't die. So, if you take the spirit out of a vehicle, then the vehicle dies. Maybe that's what's meant by their hearts will fail out of fear of the Lord, of the next level, of what's happening. It becomes overwhelming for some people but some people are going to think that's space aliens. See, the humans think that, well, Doe said that the space aliens think of, I believe he said it. I didn't know. I was saying this for a while, that I believed it was possible that, and then I think I heard it in one of those 1994 tapes that Doe was indicating that the Luciferians thought of the next level members as another space race. I think that was the term Doe used. And that there were many space races. I mean, when I was in the classroom, when we were examining all that, I remember there was some document that said there were 70 space races. I don't know. Doe didn't say how many different planets became got the call to come to the Earth. And how did they get here, right, from other planets? Well, maybe it was through wormholes. Tiendo did say that there were freeways in the heavens. And they didn't say it. They said that in 1975 that I first heard it. And then in And then when we saw the talk of wormholes, I began to think, I wonder if that's a freeway. Maybe it's a one-way freeway to where they can't go back. I don't know how the next level keeps them on the planet. It might be that they only have a little bit of that element in their spacecrafts, so that maybe it's not strong enough to burst through the atmosphere. And the atmosphere could include the electromagnetic atmosphere. Maybe it has to do with, that. But even if the space aliens could get out of the electromagnetic field of the Earth, since they need human mammalian materials to keep growing new vehicles, unless they're bringing those materials with them on the spacecraft, they're not going to want to leave. So in that way, they are being required to stay here on the planet. So that's what I believe Doe would have been referring to by what you said, Booster. Then DJ Taconic says, thank you, Sawyer. I enjoy being here in the chat as well. I appreciate that, and I thank you as well. LOL, okay. Getting carried away with my name there. I hope you don't mind. I don't really want to read the expressions of love for me in the chat room. I appreciate them. I'm not saying they're disingenuous. But love, in my understanding of what love is from the next level perspective is that is like Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. So we have that. That's what we have between us. I'm a student like everybody else. I'm a student that received a lot of information, and so I'm to some degree I'm active as a student, and I can understand why individuals would want to connect with me in whatever ways that is available, and I would want to do the same thing if I was in the same vehicle that had, come into believing after the time that Tiendo left, and crew. So, but I've said this over and over again. I know for a fact that I'm not the older member yet that Doe said I was in the Beyond Human series, because I fell away and broke procedures, and I was deceitful a little bit. That one time I was deceitful when I didn't report my slippage of giving into sexuality and with myself, and I kept it from Doe for a number of days. I don't remember how many days it was, but he actually surfaced it when he was passing me in a stairwell, because we had a big house at the time in Arizona, and a mansion, and so it had multiple decks, multiple floors on it. So there was an internal stairwell that was like any corporation's kind of stairwell, a big wide stairwell. And so I was walking down, and he was walking up, and we stopped, and he said, "Hi, Sawyer, or Sawyerty." I think he asked me how I was. And I think I said, maybe I hemmed and hawed a little bit, and he said, you seem like you've been distant from me. And so I told him. And so he was extremely sensitive, because we hadn't had any meetings, I don't think, but he could just tell that I was distant. He could read me. They didn't try to read us. They said that they didn't try to read us, but things would occur to them, and they would sometimes they would not want to accept it, and they would think that it was an influence trying to make us look like we were doing something that was out of whack according to the program when we weren't. And so they didn't always know who was dealing with something, like, doubting being in the classroom, or suffering because they were thinking about the children that they left behind, like Song already suffered with, or about the past in some other way, a spouse left behind, or parents, or whatever it is. It doesn't. All those can be strong bonds. So I'm faced with that again. I was faced with it last week, and I was like, suffering because I was thinking that pretty soon this is not going to be a comfortable place for me to be because of wanting to keep the vehicle's family from being having a problem because of my being here. Because I know the lower forces don't want me talking. They don't want me to say anything. They don't want anybody to talk about Tiendo. Not just me. I'm not saying I'm special in that regard. No, I'm not. They don't want anybody to talk about Tiendo. They'll do anything to keep people away from Tiendo. Have them believe in space aliens as their gods, or have them believe in spirits as their helper gods, or guides, or as the ultimate belief to have, or ultimate relationship to have in the human kingdom. And it's not. It's actually traps that keep people away from looking more into what's most real. And what's most real is what we can see and can do and can hear and can respond to, and have and see the vehicles that the information came through, being Tiendo and any of the students that or in the exit tapes demonstrating their state of mind. But I can't let that, fear of that disconnect stop me. So in that way, I'm separating from the world and my attachments. Because like Jesus said, and Doe ended up quoting, I think even in the back of the Heaven's Gate book, which is the back side of the book, that he said was going to be talked about, that it says in the book. No, it says in the backside of the book, the Bible, the records, not the whole Bible, but just the records in the book of Revelation, chapter 10, says that that's going to be talked about during the time of the seventh trumpet. And that Tiendo started that with crew, with the posters that you can see in the Heaven's Gate book that all talk about Doe as being the return of Jesus and his father. It says that on the Heaven's Gate website too, on the opening page. That's what little Uzi Vert was trying to change the wording of, for his own use of that logo. But because of Mark and Sarah's efforts to threaten him with a lawsuit, changed it. He's still got a bunch of misinformation. He's still using the keyhole, and you can tell, but he's not at least using that same terminology, at least at that point. I don't know if he's using that same terminology somewhere else in his promotional materials. Saying that his father was the same father and that he was the son. In other words, he was Jesus and his father was the Father. So that would be a space alien way of distracting people from the truth. Another one. But some people can look at that and say, I wonder what that, Heaven's Gate was all about. So even that negative can be turned into a positive. And that's why I suggested to Lil Uzi Vert that I play some music with him. And if he has any questions about things, I would, of course, do my best to answer them. But I wouldn't condemn him or anything. I wouldn't, say to him, that's not. But I might tell him why I think it's not the case. If he asked, if he didn't ask, then I don't know if I would say anything. I don't know what I would say. I think I would have to tell him that for whatever it was worth to him. Because otherwise I wouldn't be standing for T and Do, would I? Because they were the ones that were the Father and the Son returned. And the way that Revelation 3:12 talks about how that Jesus gives the new students, the student body, the name of deity. Actually says the name as identity, as in name as pointing out to that person, pointing out to the students who their older member is. And that Do did that. T didn't say to Do, I'm your older member. But T knew that she was at some point. And Do learned it the hard way by giving his own opinions about doing things, going here, going there, talking to this person or talking to that person. I'm not sure what the examples were, but those are the kind of things I think that Do wanted to play something out, is the way I think he said it. And T would I think sometimes express that she didn't think that would yield what they were looking for, and sometimes maybe she just went with him and did it. But then I guess T must have spoken her mind because Do told us that T at one point sat on the curb of the street and put her head in her hands and said, I'm not taking another step. And I guess that was a shocker to Do. I could see how it would be. Because because he had, but it helped him wake up a little more, because the way he said it was that if he recognized that T would come to a decision a lot faster on certain things, and she would eliminate a lot of possibilities very easily. Where Do wanted to consider doing this and consider doing that, thinking of maybe, I don't know if he thought about the positives and the negatives to it. That's the way a human vehicle would do it. And if he hadn't fully brought his mind in enough at that point, to know that T was his older member, then he would have been, basing his decisions, some of them, or his choices on the combination of next level mind and human mind that he still had in his vehicle. It was an awakening that he went through. You listen to the Beyond Human tapes, you'll see him talking about it that way. Not in those exact same words, but the intention is very strongly there. And but then they worked as a partnership. So in other words, he told us. Well, T actually told us to make our commitment to Doe. She told us that Doe was uncomfortable about asking us for that, even though he knew we needed to make our commitment to him. And I think Doe was uncomfortable with it because that could serve better. So that I could repeat that and other people could repeat that. It might be in one of the audio tapes. I don't remember if the audio tape was on at the time. It was a regular meeting with T and Doe both present. And if you read 88 Update, you get a lot of the things that shows that Doe talks about a little bit as his struggle with waking up. I don't know how long it took him, but it's not relative to anything important. It took what it took. Well, T did say that he needed to get into the human kingdom very thoroughly in order to relate to all the students that were going to be breaking away from the human kingdom and their mammalian behaviors. It's part of that. Well, I'm going to go to the chat room. Okay, Discord. Discord. What is that? Is that asterisk? My eyes aren't so good. Asterisk and then caret, pound, 2900. Okay. Vault boy. Yeah, Peter was going to help me with being able to broadcast through one piece of software that he has. Because right now OBS, I don't know if I can do anything with Discord through OBS. I guess I could bring up the Discord app. I do have somebody that wanted me to talk with them on that, or maybe that was Twitch. I think that might have been Twitch. Somebody added me to a Twitch group. I haven't done it yet. I got to go up. I read that about Discord, but I see there's other things been talked about here. Quite a bunch. Wow. Oh, another Discord person. Okay. Dante. Pound 0666. I guess I just have to do that one time if I have a Twitch account or a Discord account. Okay, laughing out loud wants me to answer me. Says answer me, answer me. Do you have Discord? Yes, I do, but I don't have it active right now. Bro, I'd take his kids? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of chat room activity here that I got to catch up with. Vault Boy says, Sawyer, I need to know exactly why your camera is from the 1980s and why your stream is kind of messed up in order so you can messed up in order. So can you explain to me that? Yes, thanks. Okay, Father, I love you too, Dad. I miss you. I guess you're talking to somebody else when you're talking about dad and father. I'm not anybody's father or dad. I have my vehicle has um, a daughter, so I'm the only a dad to that individual. But other than that, I'm not a dad or father to anybody. I just, that needs to be very clear. I'm a student with more experience than some people. That's all. That's all I am. I mean, it's a big experience, yeah, because T and O are big. So, all right. So, Booster says I'll look for that timestamp video and get back to you. Thanks. And then Booster says I'm playing Fallout 4 right now. Okay. And laughing out loud. Okay, says Sawyer. Do you have any social medias? Yes, I have Facebook. I have Twitter. I have. I hardly ever do anything on Instagram. I just had it to communicate with Lil Uzi Vert a couple times. That's all. But I have a Facebook page, or two or three, and the one that I is called the Sawyer dot Heaven's Gate is the name of it. And Vault Boy says, can I get some private time with you? BBG? BBG. I don't do any of that really. 'Cause I don't want to, I'm not into people having relationships with me on a human level of any kind. So, in terms of being able to talk about the information directly, it's getting harder and harder to do that because I do have more and more people that. But I mean, if I'm on my Facebook account and you happen to see me there, and you want to send a call, I'll pick up the phone. I'll pick up the call through Facebook and talk for a few minutes. So yes, you can have that if you want to. Vault Boy says I'm a guy, by the way. Yeah, well, calling yourself boy, I kind of thought so. Doesn't matter if you're a guy or a gal or in between. I would have the same response. And he says I have foreskin. Well, I don't care about that. And Booster says, when I first discovered next level information, I was somewhat intimidated to participate in these live streams because everyone seemed more advanced than me. But I found this to be a welcoming place. Cool. I'm glad because advancement, can be very relative. It's it's what we do with the information that shows our advancement, and that advancement is only going to be available to be seen by T and O and crew because we can't judge one another. Like I've said many times, and I'm totally believe is true, is that you could have overcome something that I'm still having a hard time with. And if I don't overcome that thing, then I'm going to not get on that spacecraft and get that job working in a laboratory or on a spacecraft traveling to who knows where, or to work with people on the Earth in ways that can help people on the Earth more than the way humans can help anybody now. The next level can save somebody from a disaster if they want to. They can give somebody what they're asking for by sending influences to them to give them something they're asking for, just so that they will learn that what they're asking for isn't what they want. Of course, people that get a lot of things and have a lot of money and everything they want, they can get bored with it, but then they get addicted to it, to thinking that's, there's nothing else better than having all this stuff. Or they get into, giving money to people in Africa and supporting causes in the United States and wherever they are. It doesn't matter. I'm just talking about like people in Hollywood in the United States that I know start up programs in Africa too. And I'm not saying that's bad or good or I'm not judging it. It's whatever they want to do. They're giving, and so it's good in that respect. they're giving something. But whether it's in the next level's eyes, whether it's giving to the degree that they would have them give to the next level, Jesus used that parable, right, of the rich person that gave something to the beggar and the poor person that gave more. When the rich person could have given a lot more than the poor person. That poor person was showing that they're made of more next level mind than the other person. In other words, their judgment of what to give to that person is based on what they were feeling at the time, and they weren't fearing doing without. Of course, that's the benefit of being poor is you get used to not having, and being rich, you get used to always having. So both are lesson grounds. And both, I think, can be entrapping also. To think that, okay, well, if I become an ascetic, like the Gautama Buddha, and I fast from food and I fast from sex and family, and I go up in the mountains and I meditate, and that's the path to the top of the mountain. Well, yeah, it can be a path to the top of the mountain, but it won't get you off because you're going to have to overcome that. And the way you're going to have to overcome that is by going back into the town and talking with and living with humans in the society, to where you're challenged with a lot of things that somebody that just goes off into a cave isn't challenged with. Children, paying the mortgage, losing your job, having to do a job that you hate. That's the real world. That's what T would say. She would call that the real world, but she didn't define it the way I just defined it. I realized it later that that's what she was talking about. And I think she said it in another way that made me realize that that's what she was talking about, those things. She didn't say, she would just say, when you're in the, it's not the way it is in the real world. I can hear her saying something like that. That's not the way it is in the real world. And it didn't occur to me at the time that what she was talking about. In fact, it confounded me. Talking about booster not understanding, it confounded me. And I thought, I don't even know if I heard the words so much, but had the feeling of thinking, I thought we were the real world in the classroom, because the next level is what was real. And Human Kingdom was a facsimile of that reality. It was a developed, designed, fashioned environment, mental and physical. It was a construct. But the next level isn't that. Isn't a construct. And the reason it's a construct is because the next level is the only reality, because it doesn't last very long, and we don't see it all. We're not objective about it because we're in the fishbowl, and we don't know what's outside the fishbowl, except what limited things we can see. If it's a glass fishbowl, then and that might, to another fish, that might look like another fish, a bigger one, much bigger one. When they see a human looking in the bowl. They don't know that it's a human because they don't have that programming. It's the same way with members of the next level. And Tiendo in particular, we couldn't see that they were older members from the next level with our eyes, obviously not. But that's what makes it a challenge. We don't get proof. Tiendo said that when you're able to graduate, you can't get any proof. For all I know, I was never ready to graduate. For all the reasons that T gave me and maybe more. So I don't know if I'm doing the best I can. I might be, I might not be. I don't think I am really. But I know enough about the next level and have enough next level mind in me to know that quitting is the only form of defeat. Even though if somebody does quit trying to grow through asking for Tiendo's guidance, that they might come back to it at a future time, and it might mean more to them then. They may need to go through some more lessons in the world. And then some things that they'll see Tiendo say in the videos and writings and the audios will make sense to them, where it didn't make sense for a while. It's like all things in the human kingdom are good in the sense that they lead us to who we are now, so that we can accept Tiendo's reality. And believe in it and want to work for it and work to become a member. It's employment. It's not sitting on a cloud somewhere. All right, so LOL, okay, says Sawyer, do you have any social media? I already answered that one. Like Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. Is there any way you can follow me? I think my Twitter name, what is my Twitter name? It might be Sawyer Tito. I forget it right now. Anyway, and I said that my Facebook page was Sawyer.heavensgate. I don't remember what my Instagram is, and I hardly ever use it anyway, so maybe I should use it more. There's only so much I can keep up with in a day. The booster says, how old even are you? My vehicle is 68 years old. Wait a minute. What year were you? 2020? Right. So in August, I'll be 69. My vehicle will be 69. I'm an old man. I just don't have white hair. I don't know why. Maybe all those years of not having sex has something to do with it. Oh, I see. Walt Wolper is asking that of Booster. Okay, how old you are. All right, sorry, I got confused there. Laughing out loud. Okay, 3 SPM. Do you have Discord? I said yes. Right to that. Then Vault Boy says, like, why are you intimidated by my boy Sawyer? I mean, I know he's so hot and cute, but that doesn't mean anything. Well, he was intimidated because he felt like he was behind in his understanding. But we all have to come to this information in some time frame. It's not like someone gives you a pill, so it's not like anybody's in a different grade in school. Really, it's just you're just being given catch up on the history and those concepts and ideas and understanding what he was talking about is all part of that. Okay, bride, take his kids. I'm not proposing anybody leave their kids behind. Because that could be used as an excuse, saying I'm going to go follow Tiendo and then leave the kids behind. No, Tiendo taught that humans are responsible for the children that they bring into this world. And you need to talk to the next level about any kind of thing like that too. And I suspect that those that have children now that want to become full-time students of Tiendo's information already have a circumstance to where, let's say they're a parent that's divorced or something and they're separated from their kids. So they can't have, a live-in relationship with them. But you can do an awful lot of work for the next level while you're with your children. However, I'm not saying that there's one way of doing it. Let's face the facts is that all parents are going to eventually leave and generally ahead of their children. And we're not in a place now that, there's no present older members. So laying down our vehicle by our own choice, I don't think that that's in the cards right now. Because we need to prove to the next level that we will work for them by standing up for them. And you can't do that by being in the grave. And you can't also separate from the world by thinking that losing your vehicle is going to do that. Sure, you'll be separated from the world, but you'll still have all the same addictions, same beliefs. To the degree that you believe in Doe as being your shepherd, you have to know that Doe is your shepherd. And you have to maintain that knowing until you leave. If you lose that knowing, then the shepherd's not necessarily going to take your soul or spirit into the next level holding grounds to be saved for future opportunity to overcome the world. So we need our vehicles in order to overcome the world that we're in. And our loyalty to it is part of that. Okay, I'm going to skip down in the chat room. Okay, 5S Porter says, Richard Milhouse Nixon shall rise from the grave on October 21st, 2020. He will then become the Democratic presidential candidate for the election. Will he win? We shall see. All right, if you say so. I don't know how that could happen. I mean, my understanding from T&O is that all the presidents and leaders of countries are controlled by the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls. That's why it says Revelation 6 talks about the red horse with somebody sitting on it. Sitting means having a position. That red horse having a position. And those are presidents. And Obama was the black horse. And he presided over the time of unending global financial problems and manipulations. And that's been going on. That was all through the Obama administration and to date. And then the green horse is Trump, I believe. The harvest horse, when death is the designation of what's happening now. And that has to do with people choosing to die or not. I don't mean by losing their physical vehicles, but by choosing where to put their allegiance, who they believe in, what they want to change about themselves to show more allegiance to the next level versus mammon, the human mammalian kingdom, and all its sensuality in all its forms. So Jay Pollock says in the chat room, would Star Odie's Odie name have been Star Odie, S-T-R-O-D-Y? Yes. Whatever happened to her? She was among the 38. And Jay Pollock says, so can I join Heaven's Gate? No, there's no Heaven's Gate group anymore. There's no Heaven's Gate cult. There's no there's no teacher here now. And the idea is to be without all that so that our task is by ourselves, but that doesn't mean that if you found somebody that wanted to hang out with you, you couldn't hang out with them and still follow everything T&O taught and provided to us to learn, by listening to the tapes and also to stand for them. If you find a partner that thinks it's all stupid or something, then that might not be a good partner, because you don't want to be trying to hide, or that person will end up turning you into somebody else, that's looking for dissidents, or people that are saying things that are conspiracy theories or inaccurate or not Christian or so. Okay, then 5, and Kate's Biz says, damn dude, yipes. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. I should have stayed up with the chat room better. We maybe know what you're talking about, but I don't think you're talking to me. But if you are, that's fine. I don't care what I'm called. And 5 Porter says the Branch Davidians had some interesting views. Yeah, but The only thing that the next level Doe said about the Branch Davidians was that he wondered if his students would be as dedicated as David Koresh's students were to him by staying in the complex and being willing to die for what they believed. So each of those individuals that died there would be judged by the next level, not by humans. And if the next level determines it's something they want to do, then they'll take that soul or spirit out of that vehicle and either give it an opportunity in the current civilization, if there's that much time left, depending on what that person needs, and giving an opportunity for both of them to live in a future classroom like this one is. I'm going to start to bring this to a close because I've been talking for 3 hours. I'm getting pretty tired. Then 5-5 Porter says, I don't know, but they were interesting enough to attract attention from the feds. Right? 5-5 Porter says, The Remnant Bride is another good one, based out of Salem, Missouri. Okay, I hadn't heard about that one. I'm sure there's a bunch. Then 5-5 Porter, I'm a longtime friend of the founder, Mr. Naylor. Mr. Naylor, that's it, the friend of Doe's, vehicle's friend. If so, I'd like to hear what he has to say about Doe. It's probably negative, but I'll always listen to it. Well, I'll listen to what he says. Volt Boy says, if you have Discord, add mine. I'm 2900. I wrote it down. 5-5 Porter says, I like Heaven's Gate. Some good insights they had. Case Biz says, a few, I suppose. 5-5 Porter says, well, enough for you to come on in and enjoy this fellow's broadcast. Okay, you're talking among yourselves. Mr. says, Sawyer, how valid is the documentary series Ancient Aliens? I don't remember it that well now. And I would venture to say that, it's got things in it that are probably accurate and things that aren't. And then Jay Pollock says, I think where aliens refer to their alien agendas as the Elohim. Yes, they do. They do. And they think that they created humans, but they've been misled because it doesn't say that the Elohim mated with the daughters of men. And then the daughters of men were humans before that. It says the sons of God. So there's talking about individuals that were sons, but went wayward. They went astray. They're the fallen angels. Enoch talks about them too. And also the ones that he's connected with, Rael, is said they were named Lucifer and Satan, which may be so. I don't know what names they take or whatever. They can change their name anytime they want. But he had experience with them, and he thought, I guess, the spacecraft, and they said that they clone human vehicles from our little piece of DNA from our head bones, and let's see here. Something else I was trying to remember there. I forget it right now. But then Pep Linsky 222 says, "Where did Doe come from?" We don't know where Doe's mind came from. We know that he was an older member well before this current civilization, even before that, before any of the civilizations on Earth, I guess potentially. I'm not sure if he originated on Earth or not. He might have said something about it to somebody, but I never heard it. Now the aliens are, if you want to, Jay Pollock, if you want to refer to them as elders, that's fine. But well, they do know how the garden grows, and they did grow to a certain degree of qualifying to be in a student program in the next level with limited access to certain. Well, everybody's got limited access to different things. It depends on the departments they work in, but 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 they're not the same as the elders from the next level. In the next level, time isn't the designation of being an elder. It's experience. But the space aliens, even though they might be elevated, they might be older than us in some ways. Let's say a space alien overcame their anger issues. And let's say I'm somebody that I'm not one of those people right now, but let's say I hadn't overcome my anger issue. Well, in that way, then they're ahead of us, so they're an elder. But in the other way, it can be the reverse. The one person could have overcome their sexuality, and the space aliens might not have overcome their sexuality. That's some examples. Right, Jay Pollock just verified that Star already was indeed in the graduating class, still learning their names. And Booster says, I think it's same to assume there will not be an opening of heaven's gate or Messiah in our lifetime. Well, don't ever close the gate. So the gate is still open, even though it says in the Revelation that it's opened and closed. So maybe that's another point that's inaccurate about it. Though said there was a brief period of time where people could join him. Now, then he described there was three types of people that some would join him and some would be saved if they had, depending on what they'd overcome. They'd be brought back to the human kingdom after they lose their vehicles through another experience to learn more lessons from. Okay, folks, I'm really kind of at the end of my energy rope. So that was the end of the chat room. So I'm gonna turn into a pumpkin. I don't know if Tindo said it that way. Go down. Go to the rest chamber. My rest chamber is in the same room where I am. I've got a one-room office rest chamber. Thank you, Booster. Good night to you. And we'll do this again, I hope. If we don't, then that's the way it goes. I can't predict the future, but I know as long as I'm in this vehicle and I have internet connection, I'll be trying to do this every couple days, every 2 or 3 days, or 4, whatever the case may be, 5, whatever. I kind of, I talk with Tindo about it. Oh, there's another comet, Comet Swan, that's looking green as well, by the way. I want to add that. April 11th, it comes through, it was discovered. Or it came to perihelion, I guess. So that made 2 comets with Atlas. And there might be more, but they're both bright, and they're brightening also, differently than they thought would brighten. All right, with that said, I'm going to call it quits. Good night, folks.